So even though this is the first thing you're going to see, we just finished building the short block for Project White Trash. I just realized how long this intro is going to be. Thought I'd warn you, there's probably 7 or 8 minutes of us just talking about the engine before we actually get to the engine build. But if you wouldn't mind giving us a watch, I'd appreciate it. And as always, the most important thing is encourage this guy. He did all the labor on this engine. And now that we're done, and this is the end of the video, let's get to the beginning of the video. Enjoy. Welcome back. It's only been 2 months. That's how long the machine shop had our engine block for. Long story. Anyway, so volume 2 of Project White Trash was going to be rebuilding the transmission, but some plans changed. The transmission kit that I was going to use has been discontinued, and the only ones on the market now are about twice the price. So instead, I just decided to put all the money into the engine for right now, and we'll get back to the transmission later. I've got some things to figure out. So if you remember, we have 2 engine blocks. We took them both to the machine shop. One of them was pretty rusted out. It's pretty messed up. The machine shop didn't want to mess with it, not because it may not be salvageable, but because they were afraid that after they dipped it and started working on it and spending my money, they were afraid that it wouldn't be salvageable because it was pretty rusted out. So they took engine block number 2, but the bad news was engine block number 2 had already been bored 40 over, which meant our 30 over pistons were completely useless. And I was really hoping we could save some money and use those 30 over forged pistons. They're really nice pistons. Basically, they were just assembled and never used. But we couldn't use those. We're going to use those on another project because, like all car guys, why have one when you can have 2 at twice the price? So we had to order, the engine block had to go 60 over, so we had to order 60 over pistons, which was another unforeseen cost. The block had to be decked, it had to be bored, it had to be dipped, it had to be checked for cracks. It needed new freeze plugs, it needed new cam bearings, it needed new oil passage plugs. So it cost a lot more than I had budgeted, which is why this video is only going to be about assembling the short block of the engine, and not even the entire short block. There are some parts I still don't have, some parts that are on back order, some parts I simply can't afford right now. So we're actually going to break up just the engine assembly into 2 videos, maybe 3. And we're going to assemble just the short block, the block, the crank, the rods, the pistons, the camshaft, and the accessories involving those for this video. We are still working on engine block number 1 here at the house. It's actually turned out really beautiful. It was a lot of caked on surface rust, but the cylinders aren't pitted. The crank journals aren't pitted. The cam journals aren't pitted. It was a lot of caked on surface rust, like it sat maybe in a liquid or something, or it had water and condensation on it. It was thick caked on rust, but once we got to the metal actually looks really good. Junior here has been putting a lot of time into engine block number 1, and the cylinder's already done on it. We need to hit them with the micrometer, see what size they are. If they're 30 over, we're going to throw in those 30 over forged pistons and have a backup engine. But anyway, this is going to be about what we call engine block number 2, which I guess is technically going to be engine block number 1. It's going to be our primary block from now on. But it just came back. And it came back from the machine shop. It is 60 over. We have brand new 60 over hyper-eutectic cast pistons. Unfortunately, just one of those things that forged pistons weren't in the budget, so we're going to have to be very careful and not detonate the engine, because cast pistons aren't known to hold up to detonation as well as forged pistons. But I think we're going to be fine. We're gonna be really smart with the fuel system. We're going to get I'm going to punish you so badly when this is done recording. We're going to be really smart with the oiling system and the fuel system, and we're going to do our best to avoid any detonation. So let's get into actually building the engine. But you're going to notice our clothing is going to be different as we go, because this is actually a really disjointed video. We actually have already cleaned, washed, dried, re-oiled, and prepped the block for assembly. And then we remembered we didn't make this video, the introduction. So if our clothing changes and we look different, it's because we're going to be doing this as we get time. We may put a couple of parts on one day and a couple of parts on the next day. And yeah, just whenever we get a chance. So we've already done part of it. And then now I'm doing the intro. And then we're going to go back and we're going to start the assembly. And so the first part of this video, as far as the actual hands-on with the engine block, will be with the stuff we've already done. It'll be some short videos of us cleaning, soaping, scrubbing, air drying, and then re-oiling the short block, or the block itself, and the main caps. Then we're going to get into the short block assembly. That's actually not going to be very long. Chris Jr. is going to be doing the entire assembly with me watching. We have a new torque wrench, piston, compression rings. We have everything we need. I'm going to tell him and maybe demonstrate one. He's going to assemble everything under my supervision. He's going to put the engine together. The only thing he may not be able to do is he may not be able to torque the main caps all the way. I think it's 70 foot-pounds of torque are needed for the main caps.
That's more than I weigh.
Yeah, that's more than he weighs. He's scrawny, weak, frail. He's so disappointing. But don't worry, we're not going to show you the entire short block assembly. We're going to show you assembling one piston with the piston rings. We're going to show you installing one piston. We're going to show you installing one main cap, one rod cap, installing the cam. We're going to show you one of 8 pistons and one of 5 main caps and all that. We're not going to have a 3-hour video. The great thing about an engine like this, once you've done it once, it's the same doing it all 8 times. So it's really not going to be a long video. My rambling here is going to be the longest part of this video. And, well, you got anything to add, Junior?
No.
Of course. All right, let's get started. Here we are washing the block. Even though the block just came from a machine shop and we painted it, there's definitely going to be some microscopic pieces of metal. There's going to be a lot of oil and debris in the engine. We're about to grab some bottle brushes and clean out all the passageways in the engine. We're going to clean out every oiling hole, every bolt hole. We're going to clean everything. We're going to wash it just like we would anything else, and then afterwards we're going to oil it so it doesn't rust on us. Now Junior's just going to wash it off. He's going to blast inside all the different oiling holes. And the next step will be to actually oil the engine. Well, we're going to air blow it first, dry it out completely, then we're going to oil all the unpainted surfaces. Liberal doses of oil all over the engine before we put it away for a few days until we assemble it. This will prevent flash rusting. Here we are on a cold, rainy day at Green Hill Strength Conditioning, Auto Repair, and General Debauchery. I realized that before we actually get to assembling this engine, we need to measure the rings, the piston rings. So I'm teaching Junior how to gap piston rings. We're going with a 0.022 gap. Anyone watching this who recognizes that number or is thinking maybe that's a little bit of a wide number for an engine, we are gapping it just in case we happen to run across a nitrous kit or a turbo or a supercharger at some point in the future. So we're going with a 0.022 gap. And I was just showing Junior that this ring is gapped perfectly at 0.022 in cylinder number 5, but is not gapped in number 6, 7, or 8 properly. In fact, it's probably only at a 0.18 in most of those cylinders, showing just the microscopic difference in the same, or the different cylinders bored out on the same machine at the same time. There are microscopic differences. So this piston ring is going to be perfect for cylinder number 5. So we're going to gap each set of rings and put them on the piston that they belong to. That way there are no problems going forward, and we don't end up with too small of a ring gap and destroy our engine later on. So we're going to get to that. We're going to start gapping the rest of these and get them on our pistons. And there's our beautiful 60 over piston that Junior is holding. All right. All right. Chris is going to do our next piston ring for piston number 5. He's going to place it in there. That's good enough, buddy. Just push into place with the piston. He's going to set it in there evenly using one of our pistons. He's going to get it in there about 1 inch flush. Lift it back out. And now, check the ring gap.
Here's the ring gap. Here it is. Too smart. No.
Okay, let me double check it. It is very difficult to see in here, but yeah, it's nowhere near where we need it to be. So take it, grind it on.
10 times?
Yes. Push it together over the file. Give it 10 good back and forth rakes.
That?
Yep. Now put it back. Start the process over again. And let's see what we came out with.
Gloves. I'm very smart. I'm totally not getting the gloves stuck in the ring.
Nice and flush. Back out. And let's check that ring gap. Nope. So pull it out and another 10 passes. Chris has made another 10 passes over the ring, and it is not there. This particular ring had essentially a 0 gap when we started, so it's going to take a little bit. All right, so this is probably our 6th pass, and it looks like we have hit our desired ring gap of 0.022.
You just kind of want to
All right.
put it on ring 5?
Now we only need to do that. Let's see, 7, 14, 21, 22 more times, buddy. What do you think? Just 22 more of those. All right.
You just kind of want to set it. Is it the second ring? This is ring 2, right?
That's the only piston ring we're going to show you, or else we would be here for hours. So see you later. And here we see Junior holding the completed number 5 piston. We have the oil expander rings installed, and we have the gap first and second groove rings pre-gapped. So this piston is ready to go in, and they are measured and gapped to the number 5 cylinder bore. So those will fit perfectly. 1 down, 8 to go. Luckily, you don't have to live through all that. Guess who just broke a piston ring? Believe it or not, it was not the child. It was the giant man-child. Just very, very frustrating. Now I have to order an entire new set of rings to replace one out of, there's 40 in a set. But you have to order an entire new set just for this one. Not happy. All right. back to it. We finally have new piston rings. And here's Chris Jr. installing the last piston ring on the last piston before we begin assembly. Chris Jr. has already lubed up all of our camshaft bearings on our short block. He has put multiple coats of engine lubricant, break-in lubricant on our camshaft, and he's about to install it. We are using Permatex Ultra Slick. We have the bottom of the engine facing up. We've removed the main caps so that Christopher can install the cam as easily as possible. Christopher is installing our camshaft.
This is difficult even with my tiny fishing hands.
Just one lobe at a time, son.
Is it hitting somewhere?
Yeah, it's going to hit every single lobe all the way across.
Okay, now this one.
Last one, buddy. Just guide from over here and push it back a little. Just focus on getting this lobe into that bearing. I couldn't think of the word.
So difficult to fit this in here.
So our camshaft is installed and it is spinning fairly freely. So considering they're brand new, and that is why we use Ultra Slick engine break-in lube, because those are brand new bearings and a brand new camshaft. The only concern I have is that LMR sent us a long dowel pin for the front of our cam, and I didn't realize it till I went to install it. I have some concerns about that clearing our timing chain and our cam bolt. We'll have to see. Junior is now cleaning the crankshaft journals so we can install our crankshaft bearings. You do not want any type of lubricant between the engine block and the bearing itself. That has to be completely dry and clean. The top of the bearings will get lube, but there can't be any lube between the bearings and the engine block. Here's Junior installing our Clevite Molly crankshaft and main journal bearings. He's cleaning up the whole thing because sometimes they come from the manufacturer with some oil on them, and then he's going to install them. Chris is installing the main bearings. The main bearings generally only go in one way. They'd have a tang that makes them clip into place. Let's see. That feels pretty even. So that one's installed, buddy. And Chris is going to install... No. He's going to install all the others. Christopher's applying our Permatex Ultra Slick to the main bearings. And as I've just shown him, you only want to come up about 85-90% of the way up to the top. You do not want any Ultra Slick to get between the engine block and the bearing. You want all the lube on top You want all the lube on top of the bearing. All the bearings are nice and lubricated. Here is Chris Jr. He's going to install our crankshaft. Slow and gentle, buddy. Slow and gentle. Watch your fingers in the back. Looking good. Just a little off center. All right, is that in? Can you get your hand free? Are you stuck? Are you hurt?
There's a little.
All right, now that we got Chris unstuck from the back of the crankshaft, it is installed. Spin it, Chris. And it's spinning. So now to the main caps. Now Junior has moved on to installing our main cap crankshaft bearings. And that's basically the same as installing them on the engine block. All the journals, all the main cap journals have the bearings installed. Now Christopher is going to put Ultra Slick on those just like he did the crankshaft, and they'll be ready to install. All the main caps are on, and now we're going to install the main cap bolts and torque them down. Here's Junior with our brand new ARP main cap bolts. He's lubricating them, and he's going to install them. Yes. Put a little assembly lube on each thread. You're just going to hand tighten them, and then once they're all in, we'll start torquing them down with the torque wrench. Now Christopher is going to tighten down all the main caps to 22 foot-pounds, and there we go, it just clicked. Using our bolt torque sequence, he's going to take them all to 22 pounds, then he's going to come back and do 44 pounds, and then he's going to try 70 pounds. All the bolts are already torqued to 22 foot-pounds. Now Christopher is going back through and torquing them to 44.
Hey, where are the gloves?
All right, there we go. He's going to do them all to 44 before we move on to 70. And now the true test of manhood. Let's see if Christopher can torque these to 70 foot-pounds. As we discussed earlier in the video, he doesn't weigh much more than 70 pounds. Whoa, he did it! All right. And since all the bolts are the same, we're just going to go on and do all the rest. All right, all the bolts are torqued down to 70 foot-pounds, and we've just placed our harmonic balancer on real quick, and Christopher is test spinning it. Everything is spinning smooth and even. I think we're good. The main caps are on and everything's spinning like butter. All right. Now we are going to install our piston rod bearings. We've taken the nuts off this first one. We've marked it because they have to go back the exact same way that you take them apart. And Christopher is going to install bearings in it and apply Ultra Slick. And then once it's together, we're going to install it. There's our piston rod cap. Both sides have the bearing installed and both are lubricated. And now it's time to install our first piston. So we have piston number 1 ready to install. It's down in the bore. We have our piston ring compressor. We're going to put it on. And we're going to try to get piston number 1 installed. All right, we have piston number 1 installed. The rings are set the proper direction. We have oiled the rings. For break-in, Christopher is tightening down the piston ring compressor. And as soon as it's completely compressed, we're going to install this piston. Is that properly tight, buddy? All right. All right, so give it a stop. Give it a shot. Right there. All right, I'm going to watch the bottom. Go ahead, buddy. All right, looking good, looking good. There we go. And piston number 1 is in. Go ahead and hammer it all the way down, Chris. Now I'm going to guide this down here so it doesn't hit the crankshaft. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop. All right, and our first piston is installed. All right, so we have the first piston on the crankshaft. We've reset the main cap. We're going to hand tighten the screws. We're going to torque these first to 20, then we're going to go back through and set them to 25. And that'll be our first piston fully installed. Christopher's already set the rod bolts to 20 foot-pounds. Now we're going to go up to 25 foot-pounds. All right. All right. And that's it. Our first piston is installed. And it is turning smoothly. Let's flip it over and check it out from this side. Cylinder number 1 going up and down smoothly. All right. All right, we've got half the engine done now. Christopher is prepping piston number 5. Everything's rotating smoothly so far, but it has not been smooth. We have run into a couple of snags. We had one oil ring that would not seat, would not compress and go in the block. We had to pull it out, reseat it, put the piston back in, and we could not figure it out. It took quite a while. And we also lost a main cap for quite a while. We got unorganized and lost the main cap for quite a while. But we are halfway through and about to finish this up. All right, the entire short block is together. All 8 pistons are in. It spins. It is not as loose as I was expecting. It's actually pretty tight. In fact, it's so tight that when we torque down piston number 8, it almost completely quits spinning. We're not sure what's up with that, but this part of the engine is complete. There's one more thing we're going to do. We're going to have Junior sign piston number 1. He's going to sign.
I guess not there.
Wherever, just sign it. All right. That is it for the rotating assembly. We'll be back later with some more stuff. So we have the rotating assembly done. We got it all put together. It does turn. It's a little stiff. We skipped this step on the video, but we installed our cam thrust plate and our dowel pin. They're just 2 little hex bolts here. The dowel pin just pushes in basically. LMR sent us a long dowel pin from a 79 to 85. I'm hoping that's not going to cause a problem when we go to install our timing chain. This is a true double roller Ford Motorsport timing chain. It's got timing, standard 0-degree timing. It's got timing advance and timing retardation. We're going to install this straight up, notch to notch on the crank and the cam. And we're going to do that here in just a moment. Christopher is going to install this dot to dot on the crank and on the cam. And we've oiled up the whole thing. It's been soaking in motor oil. Line up the crank key. Yep. All right. So when you get to the cam, line up the dowel pin.
With that?
Yes, the hole.
Oh. Quite a bit above the hole.
That's because this needs to come a little further in. Hold on, let me check the... Oh, that's not straight down. There we go. So we rotated the cam a little bit.
It is.
All right, there, now it's on. All right. All right, Christopher is going to start the camshaft bolt with an 11/16 socket. He's going to start pulling it in slowly, tightening it. and we'll eventually take it to 45 foot-pounds of torque. And as the cam tightens down, I'm using a rubber mallet to gently tap the crankshaft sprocket into place to keep it even. Go. Alright, Christopher is almost ready to torque the camshaft bolt down. We're going to go to 45 foot-pounds per the ARP cam specs. The crankshaft sprocket is all the way engaged. For this step, you do have to be careful. You have to make sure your timing chain does have block clearance. When everything is tightened all the way down, your crankshaft sprocket's all the way in, your cam sprocket, you have to make sure you do have cylinder block clearance, which we do. Right, finish it. Careful. Okay, we ran into a small problem and then we didn't record reinstalling this, but I think maybe LMR sent me the wrong dowel pin for this cam. It doesn't appear to be that much too long, but the dowel pin's fully seated and we could not get the washer on the crank bolt to clear. So I went and I clearanced it myself to fit around the dowel pin. The dowel pin is fully seated. LMR sent me a part number for a 79 to 85 dowel pin. Not sure if it's just a little too long or what, but I could not get it to seat any further. And I also could not get the cam washer to clear it. When we tried to torque it down and install it with the dowel pin like that, it was warping the washer and it was pushing against the cam and trying to push the cam out the back just a little, and we decided to stop doing that, so we took it off. I ground down the washer to fit around the dowel pin. We've reinstalled it, and I believe we are done for this segment. Alright, so we have the camshaft and the timing chain installed, and it's pretty tight, but it does rotate. The whole thing does rotate. So we're good, and we are now done. And this is the ending of the video, even though we're recording it along with the first thing you're going to see, the pre-intro to the intro to the intro. But we are done now for the day. I appreciate it. Some things you might notice that we didn't get to today. We didn't get to the oil pump. That's because I have an oil pump and I have an oil pump drive shaft, but I don't have a bolt kit to put the oil pump on. And the bolts to the pickup, and we don't have the oil pan bolts and things like that. So it's not a complete short block, but it is a complete rolling assembly. So next time you see a video, hopefully we're going to install the oil pump pickup, the oil pan, the front timing cover, a water pump, things like that, and hopefully maybe in the long block, add the heads and the intake and things like that. But thanks for watching. I promise this is the actual end of the video.